We are live, Your Honor.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I call the meeting of the City Council to order and ask you to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Colleagues, tonight we're going to close this meeting in memory of slain Oakland police officer Tuan Lee. I'm going to go ahead and reserve my comments until the end, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to make some comments regarding the untimely tragedy with Officer Lee. So we will be closing the meeting tonight, and I'm going to reserve my comments until that point. Let the record show that all members of the City Council are here this evening. Item 1 is presentations. Will Rohit Sharma please join me at the podium? And others.
Rohit is not here, but I'm representing the headquarters.
That's okay. That's okay. Come on over here, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really proud to be able to present a proclamation recognizing Surya Namaskar Salutation Awareness Period, January 13th through the 28th. And I've asked my friends here if I begin butchering terminology or names, they indicated that they would step in and help me. If I get it correct, they're going to give me a rousing ovation. Whereas Hindu, Swayamasak. Okay, not even close. And I apologize for that. Commonly referred to as HSS, is voluntary, nonprofit, social and cultural organization celebrating its annual Health for Humanity Yogathon, or Surya. Thank you. To create awareness about yoga and its advantages for the public. And whereas yoga is an ancient process of keeping the human mind and body in good health, whereas spiritual training is considered a part of physical training from ancient times. Whereas the Surya Namaskar, also known as Sun Salutation, is a special sequence of yoga postures that provides the key health benefits for yoga in a very succinct package. Now, therefore, I, Michael Hannon, Mayor of the City of Newark, along with my colleagues, recognize and proclaim January 13th through the 28th, 2024 as
Surya Namaskar Yagna Sun Salutation Awareness Period.
And encourage all residents of Newark to maintain a healthy lifestyle and include this daily during this time as part of a physical activity and or spiritual training. So I welcome you. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. This is not the first time we've recognized this event. It certainly will not be the last, and would like to give you an opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity and recognizing our effort in spreading the awareness of the Surya Namaskar Yagna, or the sun salutation. Sun salutation actually brings in the full body workout for both, not just for the physical and the also mental and spiritual as well. So it connects the all the three aspects of our lifestyle and helps us out. So we are trying to spread that out as much as possible to the society here, and thanks for recognizing our effort, and thanks for the City of Newark to be helpful in supporting all those efforts.
So
Thank you.
Let me present this to you then, okay? Maybe get a photograph here. My pleasure. You know, that's what makes Newark so great, is we have so many various cultures that bring in such interesting and ancient health and awareness to our community that we as a community will certainly benefit from it. So thank you for being here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda, folks, is public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public to comment on any item that's not on the agenda this evening. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name's Barbara Miller. I've lived in Newark for 43 years. I live on Lake Boulevard, and I am a member of First Presbyterian Church in Newark. Right now, I am the elder of Buildings and Grounds there, and as such, there have been a number of times when we've had difficulty with the homeless population there. We've called the Newark Police, and I just want to give kudos to the police department as far as our church is concerned. They're always right there when we call them. They do a great job. They're backing us up for a situation that's difficult for us to deal with, because as a church, we want to invite everyone to come, and as an owner of a piece of property, we also want to keep the piece of property in good working order. And so we've had to deal with balancing that situation, and the police have gone above and beyond to help us out with that, and I just wanted to say thanks for that. Also, I wanted to bring up something that has to do with traffic. As I live on Lake Boulevard, and I go to First Presbyterian Church frequently because of what I do, I am often driving past the intersection where there is a stop where Chapman Boulevard starts. That, for over 40 years, has been a do not enter intersection. And I have spoken with Soren Fajot about it. He called me tonight and we talked about it. He gave me some background on it. And I asked him, would it be possible for him and possibly the city to just take a look at the traffic in that intersection? It would be nice because at this point, in order for me to get from Lake Boulevard to where our church is, I have to make 2 U-turns. And I don't mind making one, but you know, to have to do that twice, I mean, I'm just complaining a little bit. But basically, I'm just asking if the traffic department could take a look at that intersection and see if there's still a specific reason why that's there. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Great,
I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is absolutely the forum for any resident in the city of Newark, not to complain, but to bring issues to our attention, ones that we may or may not be aware of. We'll certainly ask City Manager Benoon and his staff to take a look at the issue that you've described and get back to you within a reasonable period of time with, you know, how we're going to handle that situation. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public that would like to comment on an item not on the agenda tonight? Ms. Harrington, is there anybody online that would like to? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Hello, Mr. Michael and other honorable council members and city staffs. I just would like to bring attention to you guys that I think there was a couple of weeks ago, there was some vandalism on one of the temple. Very sad. It should not happen like this. If we can just kind of, dig it and find out who did it with the help of the police staff and everybody. And if you can recommend all the temples, if they can have some kind of security cameras, because if something happened like this, a lot of rumors come and that divide our communities, and we don't want that. I've been living in Newark for the last 30 years. Been very active for a lot of our social activities and for the temples, and we feel like they're paying for this. That's what I want to do. Thank you.
No, thank you for bringing that to our attention. And Mr. Benoon, I just want to take a moment to thank you and specifically my colleagues, Councilmember Bucci and Councilmember Jorgens, who were available that day to go out and take a look at the situation. And as I understand it, were actually helpful in getting some of that graffiti removed. So again, it's a team effort here in Newark. All religions, all cultures are important to our community, and anybody that does anything to deface or bring negativity to our community, we're going to take seriously. And I know our police department, I'm sure, is going to look into that vandalism and take the necessary course of action. So thank you again for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you, Michael. That's it.
Anybody else that would like to comment on items not on the agenda this evening? Ms. Harrington?
No, sir.
Great, thank you. That'll be the end of the public comment. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of items D1 through D4. Are there any items that staff would like pulled from the consent calendar?
Not this evening, Your Honor. However, staff would recommend that certain revisions be made to items D3 and D4. After the posting of the agenda, staff realized some relatively minor errors in some of the attachments related to those items. So staff did provide to the council and the public a slip sheet summarizing the suggested changes. And so staff would recommend that any motion to approve the consent calendar contain the requested revisions.
And Mr. Benoon, as we accept the consent calendar at some point, can those minor changes be accepted as one, or do they need to be made separately on each item?
One motion.
Okay. Colleagues, are there any items that you would like pulled from the consent calendar? I'm going to go ahead and pull D3, folks. And otherwise, the consent calendar will consist of the following: approval of the audited demands, approval of the December 14th, 2023 minutes. 4, adopt a resolution amending the employee classification plan to delete and add multiple classifications due to title changes and new position of Deputy Finance Director. 2, amending the compensation and benefits plan for the management, supervisory, and professional employees group. 3, amending the city's salary schedule. 4, amending the 2022-2024 biennial budget and capital improvement plan. And 5, approving a letter of understanding with Newark Association of Miscellaneous Employees. Would someone like to move these items to be approved with the modifications to D3 and D4? We won't be adopting D3, so only to D4, as recommended by staff, with any items approved by resolution or ordinance being numbered consecutively, and that the reading of the title suffice for purposes of introduction or adoption of the ordinance.
So moved.
By Councilmember Collazo. Seconded by Councilmember Bucci. Please vote. You know, we do this on purpose. Just, you know, we like to bring a little levity to the council meetings, and so we do these things on purpose. I don't for guys. Let's take a voice vote. Councilmember Jorgens.
Yes.
Councilmember Collazo. Aye. Councilmember Bucci. Aye. Vice Mayor Freitas.
Yes.
And I also say yes. Those pass unanimously. I'm going to pull D3, Mr. Benoon. And again, just really to thank you and specifically the finance director and the finance staff for another clean audit. We received a certificate last year from the governmental agency. I certainly anticipate we're going to get another one this year. At least my fingers are crossed for it. But a lot of work goes into getting a clean audit. We're talking about the city's finances. That's not something that we take lightly. A lot of governmental agencies are dealing with deficits and not sure how they're going to pay for city services. We don't have that issue here in Newark. So really a commendable job by the finance director and the finance team to bring another clean audit to the city of Newark, and we appreciate what they do. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move item D3, if I can get a second.
Your Honor,
Yes,
public comment, please.
public comment on D3. Anybody online that would like to comment on D3?
No, sir.
Great, thank you for the reminder. Vice Mayor Freitas will second. We're going to try the machine one more time. Yes, sir.
I think we have to include the revisions.
Thank you. Thank you. So my motion will include the revisions as were outlined by the city manager for this item. And the second would agree with that? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bucci. See, I'm not going to laugh when I make a mistake.
Mr. Freitas?
Okay, we're going to do another voice vote. Councilmember Jorgens?
Yes.
Councilmember Collazo?
Yes.
Councilmember Bucci?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freitas?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That carries unanimously. I'm going to move this. We just don't need it anymore. Sorry, Ed. The next item is other business. There are no public hearings. Item 1 is a presentation on the Resilient East Bay Industrial Lands Analysis. There will be a presentation made on this. Mr. Benoon?
Yes, correct, Your Honor. Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. Item F1 is a presentation from our Economic Development Manager, Ms. Ann Stedler, as well as some consultants. This relates to Resilient East Bay Industrial Lands Analysis. We're going to start tonight with our Economic Development Manager, Ms. Ann Stedler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to welcome consultants who are experts in industrial lands. And of course, the purpose is to talk about industrial lands from the standpoint of Newark's role in the greater East Bay. And by that, I mean Alameda County and Contra Costa County. I'm going to take just a moment. Over here. Thank you. So with us tonight is Ms. Dina Belzer, CEO of Strategic Economics. And immediately behind her, Quinn Alexander, the economist with the Bay Area office of Jones Lang LaSalle, commonly referred to as JLL. It was Dina Belzer and experts, including Mr. Alexander, who provided the background information for the study we're going to review tonight. We're fortunate to have them here in person to talk with us about what they researched for these two counties. Our goal tonight is simply informational. We want to make sure you have the broad context of industry in these two counties. And over the next few months, we'll look specifically at the opportunities Newark has to take advantage of this material. I can't take a voice vote.
But we're all present.
Can't see the screen either, and it's just here.
So at what point, Andy, we just realized there's not any of us running this technology. We kind of look at our IT director and we see the front row and say,
And we love our IT director and his staff because we're so much better off that they're here. So, Dina, are you good with this?
I'm
Or
good.
shall I stand here?
Yeah,
and
no,
answer you?
I can do this.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Welcome, and thank you for being with
Thank
us.
you. Thank you for having me. Again, I'm Dina Belzer with Strategic Economics, and my colleague Alexander Quinn and I have known each other for decades, right? So it's really nice to be together tonight, and of course, Anne. It's awesome. I'm here tonight to talk about work that we've done for the East Bay Economic Development Alliance, and I'll talk about that again in a minute. But just so you know, there are 5 sections to this presentation. The first is about this work that we've done, just completed, wrapped up in December, called Resilient East Bay. And I'm going to go through 2 sections of the presentation to present to you what the key findings were from the analytic phase of our work, and then what tools we're recommending for cities to use to further the objectives of their industrial lands. And then we'll have a chance for question and answer at the end. I'm going to go through the presentation, and then if you have questions, right, we'll refer them to Quinn. So so again, the Resilient East Bay work was completed for the East Bay Economic Development Alliance, which is a membership organization. It's sponsored by Alameda County, but it has Contra Costa County is also a participant, and then it has many other participants from businesses, nonprofits, cities, like Anne has been a very valuable participant in the process. And their mission is really to advance the economy of the East Bay, so the 2 counties. And the Resilient East Bay project was funded by a grant from the Economic Development Administration. Sorry, the A's all get garbled in my head. To really focus on ways to preserve, protect, and enhance the East Bay's industrial land supply. So you might be asking yourself, industrial land supply, you know, how boring is that? That's like not that sexy. But in fact, it's incredibly important. The industrial lands in the East Bay, and this map, which was produced by actually the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, all the purple on this map shows industrial lands. These are lands that are zoned for industrial uses in the East Bay, or in the region. And you can see that the majority of this purple is actually in Alameda and Contra Costa County. And these lands support about 18% of the East Bay's jobs. They represent a significant proportion of the East Bay's tax base, and they're really essential to the Bay Area's ecosystem. So economic ecosystem, and we'll talk a little bit about that more. But the other thing that's really stand out about the 2 East Bay counties is that they support a huge number of middle wage jobs in this region. So to the extent that we care about housing affordability, that we care about having opportunities for everybody in our community, these lands support those kinds of jobs. So they're very important to support. So the Resilient East Bay project itself had 5 goals. The first was to streamline the process for industrial retention and development. So how can we keep the companies that we have? How can we make it easier for companies who want to come into the East Bay? How can we really strengthen the land supply? Because that's really what public agencies have. They have the opportunity to zone land, to provide infrastructure, to support those jobs and the tax base. How do we really support the industries that are driving innovation and therefore growth in our economy? Again, how do we strengthen regional coordination? Not all the things that businesses need are provided at the local level. The region provides transportation funding. The power supply comes, PG&E is sort of mega regional, right? So these are all things that cities can band together and work on to help support their economy. And finally, to really help cities do their jobs better. So these were all the goals of the Resilient East Bay program. So I'm going to talk to you about the findings. The work that we did was broken into 2 phases. There was an analysis phase, which involved a lot of data, as you would imagine. But we also did a lot of stakeholder outreach and engagement. We talked to all the cities. We talked to various developers and brokers, and JLL was really instrumental in that process. They've provided us with a lot of research, which you'll see in a minute. And then we made recommendations to cities on various tools that they could deploy to meet the needs of their industrial lands. So from the analytic work that we did, one of the key findings that we made was that the East Bay economy is really an ecosystem. It really works as a unit, as a whole. There are different parts to this ecosystem. But being a part of a city that's a part of and sees itself as part of the region is going to have a stronger economy than a city that's trying to just draw up the borders, the drawbridge and be by itself. Also, an important consideration here is that a lot of cities say, well, we have to have the certain kinds of jobs in our community because those jobs are for our residents, but people don't live and work in the same community for the most part. Maybe 10, 12% of people in any given community work in that community. So by really understanding your city as part of this ecosystem, you're actually providing better employment opportunities for all your residents, for the people who work in your city, but also the people who don't work in your city. And then you're also helping to support a regional supply chain. We all learned a lot about supply chains during COVID, right? So that's very important. So that's really this concept of the ecosystem. The last concept of the ecosystem is that businesses may start small, but they want to expand and grow. And one of the opportunities we have in the East Bay is to be able to find opportunities for businesses to stay here in the East Bay rather than necessarily having to jump to someplace like Reno or even up the I-80 corridor in Solano County. So we don't want to speak ill of our friends in Solano County, but if we can keep the jobs close at hand, it's better for our regional economy. So here's sort of what the ecosystem looks like in terms of we broke the region into these sub-areas. So you see that Union City is in the southern Alameda sub-area, along with Fremont and Union City, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. But each of these sub-areas has certain strengths. So the northern waterfront area along Contra Costa, the eastern edge of Contra Costa County, which historically has hosted a huge amount of legacy manufacturing, has a lot of land available, and so they are really there to be able to support expansion of industry. Central Contra Costa County does not have a ton of industrial activities. That's mostly housing, but they're in here anyway. Northern Alameda County, close to Berkeley and close to the university and close to the Bay Bridge, is really where we see a lot of startups. Tech startups, biomedical startups. They're in Emeryville, they're in parts of Alameda. And then there's Central Alameda County, which is San Leandro, Hayward, Union City. Well, Union City is really in your guys' bundle, but these places are also supporting a lot of manufacturing. And then the Tri-Valley area, interestingly enough, has a diverse manufacturing base, but also is starting to have an emerging life science cluster. So overall, the key industries that we focused on were distribution and logistics, transportation, manufacturing, and life science. So everything, there is some manufacturing that's done under the rubric of life science. We did not double count, we broke stuff out, so we're not. And you may be saying, well, what's the difference between transportation and distribution and logistics? And the answer to that question is that the transportation industries are businesses that are actually related to, say, aviation or the port. They're not operating necessarily big warehouses, but they're really about trucking or building trains, that kind of thing. We're not building trains in the East Bay, I'm sorry. It's been a long day, so I'm rambling, but I hope you get the point, and you'll stop me and ask if you don't. So these businesses that are located on these industrial lands that we're looking at represented 32% of all the job growth in the East Bay from 2011 to 2022. Each of these groups grew at least 25%, and you want to compare that to employment growth overall in the East Bay, it was only 16%. So this is another reason why it's important to support these businesses. Manufacturing grew the fastest, which people who say we don't manufacture in the Bay Area anymore don't understand this economy. But the other thing is that life science and logistics offered almost the exact same number of jobs increases. So people think logistics doesn't employ people, but that's also a misconception. Had a lot of job growth. This just shows 3 segments: Northern Alameda County, Central Alameda County, and Southern Alameda County. So this is 3 of our 7 sub-areas, or 6, whatever it is, sub-areas. But you can see that Southern Alameda County grew the most. It has really led job growth in the East Bay, and that the biggest chunk, that orange slice of the bar, is manufacturing. So there's really been an enormous amount of manufacturing growth in Southern Alameda County. So again, for people who don't think we make anything here, they're wrong. Or they don't understand, I should say. So the other thing is that we've added a lot of new buildings. The East Bay added 11.7 million square feet of industrial space, and Newark added 1 million square feet. So you all are doing your part. Jobs grew more quickly than space. So what this means is we're repurposing space. We're intensifying our use of space. And it also means that it's not always necessary to build new buildings in order to support job growth. So that's just something else to keep in mind. Our friends at JLL have provided us with this very interesting data about who's looking for space. And the blue bar is the people who are the businesses who are looking for space in the East Bay, and the whatever color that is, brown, I don't know, is gray, is people looking for space in Silicon Valley. Now, when you look at the bottom bar and you say, ha, distribution and logistics is looking for the most space here, but actually, if you add up the automotive, aerospace, aviation, food and beverage, and all other manufacturing, it's about 5 million square feet, and the logistics is only about 6.5 million square feet. So they're very close. So logistics is not, and manufacturing is not running, logistics and distribution is not like running away from everything else here. Various forms of manufacturing are certainly keeping pace. Quarterly demand, this chart, the blue line shows the vacancies, and the bars show what's happening with rent. So the important thing is that the blue line is higher in the beginning period in 2010 than it is in the third quarter of 2022. Vacancies are dropping, and rents have increased by 44%. So again, that's a sign of a healthy market. 4% is considered a tight market, and that's reflected in the fact that rents have gone up so much. Again, this is just showing the disproportionate relationship between demand and supply in the East Bay, and demand, again, is people who are out there looking for space. So the brokerage firms track how many companies are looking for space, what their requirements are, and so forth. So what this shows is in the East Bay, demand is almost double what supply is. Let's see, what happened there? There we go. So this is, I think, one of the most interesting findings from our research overall. So in this stack of bars, you see to the left is manufacturing buildings. In the sort of middle left is other industrial buildings, which are not classified. The ones in from the right is R&D buildings. And then we have buildings that are characterized as warehouse and distribution. And we'll talk a little bit more in a second about what those buildings actually look like. But when you look at what the mix of businesses is in these warehouse and distribution buildings, you see that manufacturing is almost equivalent to the distribution and logistics. And again, if you were to add the life science, the manufacturing, and the transportation, which is a small part of this, they're pretty much equal. So when you see a building that's described as a warehouse and distribution building, it doesn't always mean that it will only support a warehouse and distribution use. And again, our friends at JLL have done really excellent work on this to describe the fact that a modern Class A industrial building can serve, it's very flexible. And as long as you have the clear height, you have the doors, and you have some percentage of office space, those buildings can go back and forth. And they can accommodate a variety of users. And we've seen this across the bay in San Leandro, all the way out to Oakley, where there are buildings that are being used both by research and development activities and then also by logistics and warehouse. So there are all kinds of examples of this. So I just quickly want to get to our toolkit. I know not everybody is as excited about industrial land as I am. So we created this is actually a website. I didn't put in the QR code for y'all because I wasn't imagining you'd have your cell phones up to immediately excitedly go to this website, but I know, sorry, Mayor. But we've had very good response from the people who are the intended users of this. And the work that we did is divided into 3 buckets. The first is how to help with zoning, which is what you all are going to be looking at in the next few months, is really looking at, does Newark zoning really match up with demand? Is there something we can do to facilitate speeding that up or making it easier for our users? But that's really targeted towards individual buildings and individual parcels. The other thing is that there's a lot of planning and local finance that goes on in districts that is often done for mixed-use districts, or if you're trying to redo a mall or something like that, you can do an area plan, you know what your tools are, but people rarely think about that for industrial areas, but we want to make the case that that's important. And then finally, this idea of regional ecosystems, which is focused on collaboration, again, throughout the region, but is also important to focus on those regional providers of goods, of services, mostly focused on the utilities and on transportation funding. So again, why these tools? Why? And zoning, really, if industrial lands is not sexy, zoning is really not sexy, right? So, but really, it's critical if you're a business person and you want to buy a building, move into a building, you got to know what's permitted there. So how can we streamline that process? How can we make sure that the zoning matches the needs of those who are looking for either space or land? And then how can we set the zoning up so that the process is streamlined? So again, that's making for a business-friendly environment. Planning and holistic approach allows you to take a more holistic look at your land supply and also understand how you can overlay planning for infrastructure on top of that. And then again, as I said, the ecosystem has to do with being able to advocate for the East Bay, in that case at the regional level, but also at the state level, and in some cases at the federal level. But also learning how to work more effectively with entities like PG&E, which has been a huge challenge in the last few years for industrial users. So what we're going to start doing is working with Anne and her crew on assessing the existing conditions in Newark so we can take this research and these tools and really look at how we can deploy them here so that you all can take advantage of your industrial lands. We'll be coming to you with data and findings and then making recommendations on zoning. And then we'll also be working with property owners, developers, businesses, so that we understand what they think they need and they understand what the city can and cannot do for them. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the presentation. And as we said, Quinn and Ann and I are here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for the excellent report. Before I turn it over to my colleagues for questions and comments, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this item? Ms. Harrington, anybody online that would like to speak to this item?
No, Your Honor.
Great. Colleagues, questions? Councilmember Bucci.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Belzer, thank you for your presentation. On one of the graphs that you posted, you had showed manufacturing in the Southeast Bay area with the little maps. I was curious how much of that is Tesla or connected to Tesla?
Yeah, a lot of it is. We can't tell you exactly what that is, but Tesla is a huge employer itself, and then it has a huge supply chain here in the East Bay. So they have a 4-hour delivery time. Tell me if I'm telling you what you already know, but
I know, but nobody else does, so
Okay,
just
okay.
go for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I don't like to state the obvious,
That's
but,
okay.
but they require their suppliers to be able to get their, whatever their widget is, to the Tesla factory within 4 hours of when they've ordered it. So that has spawned a huge amount of activity, but not all of it is related to Tesla. And there's, again, a huge emerging amount of biotech. We were in Hayward looking at old warehouses and industrial space that was being retrofitted for various life science related companies. There's a lot of that in Fremont in older space. So it's not all Tesla.
We have a number of suppliers here in town, including Futeris, who does all their interiors and seats and delivers them over there.
Nice,
So,
nice.
I liked how you had spoke about the ecosystem of the East Bay, and I was curious if you thought that the closing of UPI and Dow here pretty quick, and how much of that hit that's going to be for all of us.
Yeah, I think that's going to have more an effect on East Contra Costa than it will here. And in the long run, if we as a region can leverage that opportunity, there will be, again, land supply that's out there that's supplied with water, sewer, electricity, et cetera, that presents opportunities. And so that's what we're trying to really do, is look beyond the legacy industries to understand how we can reposition the land and those locations so that, for example, when companies get too big for Fremont, this is a concern for Fremont. They have companies that get too big or want to find a second location. They can easily go out there to the northern waterfront area, to eastern Contra Costa.
Part of the reason I bring those properties up specifically is because they are large, and I was kind of curious if Resilience East Bay is working out there to keep them from rezoning that to housing. Because that sort of property, once it's gone forever.
That's correct. And that is a key focus of the Resilient East Bay work, is to get city councils to really understand the value of their industrial lands and to resist the push from the development community. I mean, there's a huge push in terms of the RENA numbers and all that, but the development community also wants to zone that land because it's an easy, quick turn. But it's very important for cities to understand that your tax base comes from these industrial lands, and again, your employment opportunities for your citizens. And if they're not here in Newark, they'll be in Fremont or in Union City or whatever it is. So it's very important that we don't allow housing to just overrun everything.
I am going to be interested to hear more about what you think of Newark specifically. A while back, we started making some moves to get away from distribution in warehouses because they tend to not have a lot of employees, increase truck traffic, and be low-wage jobs.
Right.
And we kind of pivoted towards benefit for manufacturing, which tends to be higher paying jobs with
Right.
more employees.
Right.
I would be looking for tips in your report for that.
Okay,
How do we encourage more
Great.
of a pivot in those things, and how do we turn some of those old distribution buildings into manufacturing buildings?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll definitely look at that. Thank you. It's a great point. And we'll also try to give you some information about the distribution and logistics industry, what the wages are, what kinds of employment there is, so that you also understand kind of the broader context for that industry. But absolutely.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Other questions, comments? Councilmember Collazo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mike, it's not going on. It's on. If you go back to the map with the purple land use, the land supply matter there, San Leandro, there's purple in the water.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me?
The San Leandro is purple in the water. Number 3. Oh, it's a bad map. Sorry. I didn't,
That's in the bay.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, I can't, we didn't make this map.
Okay.
The Metropolitan Transportation Commission made this map, so
'Cause
we'll
that's
take a
lot of
look at
purple
that.
in the bay.
Yeah, okay, you're saying this map. Okay, thank you for pointing that out, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna call MTC tomorrow and thank them for making me look bad.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I had a number of questions. And the first one, you discussed it with Councilmember Bucci, the battle between housing development and industrial lands. That's been a longstanding issue for decades. When I was in San Jose, as Ann remembers, that was one of the issues that the city council had to deal with all the time.
Right.
The push from council members wanting to rezone to housing and the need to preserve the industrial, because that, as you mentioned, is your job base. It'll be a challenge because all cities now have submitted their numbers to the state of California.
Right.
And they're under a great deal of pressure now to make sure that those housing units are being built. And I'm sure lots of cities, not Newark, have identified industrial lands as opportunities to build housing.
Right.
So I'll be interested to see between now and, I think it's 2031, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Turner, what level or what acreage we lose industrial lands to housing
Right.
by those cities trying to meet these goals. So
Right.
I'll be interested in watching that.
Yeah, I agree, great point.
The job growth, if we can go back to that chart, we love jobs. Jobs are what
This-
make.
this chart? Is this the
No,
right-
not, the one that showed the 32%
This one.
growth
Yes.
in these four subgroups. Did you have an opportunity to take a look at what the next 5 years looks like in terms of projections, in terms
Yeah.
of job growth in these specific areas to see, were these numbers over a 10-year period kind of an anomaly, or this was the projection and we anticipate those numbers to continue to grow
Yeah.
over the next 1, 5, 10 years?
Yeah, right. That's a great question. We will look at we did not look at the projections, but we can do that, again, when we come back to focus more specifically on Newark. I would say that the thing that was so interesting about the Bay Area's job growth overall, and manufacturing was a surprise winner, I think, was that no one expected the economy to rebound the way it did from the recession, the 2008, 2009 recession. So I think if you had asked some of the most prominent regional economists in the Bay Area in 2012 what they would have projected, they would not have seen this growth. So it was surprising. So, but I think, again, MTC does do employment projections. It goes into their Plan Bay Area. And so we'll at least report out what they're looking at. And what the federal government is looking at too in terms of growth.
And I'm, of course, most interested in the city of Newark.
Yeah.
I'd be interested, Ann and Ms. Belzer, as to kind of the historical perspective of where Newark's been in the last 5, 10, 20 years in terms of what was our industrial base, what was our industrial land at this point in time, let's say in 1980, where are we at today? Have we gobbled a lot of it up for housing? What have we done historically to preserve and protect our industrial lands in Newark? I'd also be interested to know what is our current vacancy rate on buildings that have already been built that are intended for industrial use? What does that currently look like today? And then finally, where do we anticipate our growth in the industrial area to be in Newark in terms of additional square footage? Unfortunately, we're only 14.2 square miles, so we're limited in terms of what we can build and have built. So I'd be interested to see, where we kind of think we'll be in the next few years relative to industrial. I thought Councilmember Bucci made another really fine point when he talked about warehouse use versus manufacturing use. And I'd be interested in the financial side of that as well, in terms of what can cities anticipate the revenue source from a warehouse use versus a manufacturing use, and why it's really of benefit for the cities to look at more the manufacturing side. But we've also been taxed, and I think you demonstrated this in one of your slides, with businesses that are looking at a variety of different uses out of the same complex. So is there a mix warehouse manufacturing that a city could certainly live with in terms of the job creation and the tax benefits, that scenario would be okay. So those would be some of the comments that I would have, that I would ask that you report back to us
Okay.
in the future on
Great.
those. But otherwise, a great presentation.
Great.
Industrial lands are very important to cities, and those city councils that are receiving this presentation hopefully are paying attention, because
Right.
it's the lifeblood of the community. So if there's no other questions, this is an informational item. Again, thank you for the presentation, and fine work as always.
I'd like to invite our colleague to comment on your question about current vacancy rates.
Great.
And some of the background to that.
Great.
The rest we can certainly give you if we study the material.
Good evening.
Perfect,
Good
thank
evening,
you.
Honorable Mayor and members of the council. My name is Alexander Quinn. I'm Director of Research for JLL in Northern California. Just very briefly, Newark's current vacancy rate is elevated above the overall area. That's at 7.5%. If I did this by memory, we just reported that number yesterday. And that's driven by the vacating of two Facebook industrial buildings. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you again for an excellent presentation. One final question. When would you anticipate, or do you have an anticipated date of when you will return with additional information relative to these topics? Not to put you on the spot on that.
I think it'll be a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah, 2-3 months. Yeah, I think we're just getting started. We're just getting underway.
And we're a patient council. We'd rather have right and correct information that we
Thank
can
you.
then make our decisions on versus something that's put together quickly. So
Great,
take as
yeah.
much time as you believe is
Great,
necessary.
thank you. Yeah, we will. Yeah, we feel that way too.
Great, thank you.
We want to get you good information.
Folks, the next item on the agenda is the adoption of an ordinance adding Chapter 17.15 to the Newark Municipal Code to establish by right housing overlay district, amending the Newark zoning map by applying the BRH overlay district to specific parcels and making related miscellaneous amendments to Title 17 zoning of the Newark Municipal Code. I understand we have a few recusals for the second reading of the ordinance to establish by right housing. Councilmember Collazo.
I have to recuse myself as I have real property interest and business interest, source of income in the Mexico Tortilla Factory at 7015 Thornton Avenue, and rental properties at 7155, 7167, 7179. And real property interest and business interest and rental property at 36805 Magnolia Street.
And Vice Mayor Freitas.
Yes, Your Honor, I also like to be recusal because I have real property interest and business interest in rental property at 37220 Magnolia Street. Thank you.
Thank you. So as they leave the room, would it be inappropriate for me to indicate that while they're gone, we're going to rezone their properties to industrial lands? Except for the Mexican Tortilla Factory. Mr. Benoon.
Yes, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. This is a public hearing, this is a non-consent calendar item to adopt the second reading of Chapter 17.15 of the Newark Municipal Code. Ordinarily, we do place second readings on the consent calendar. However, in light of the conflicts, staff arranged for this to be a non-consent calendar item. If the council may recall, at the December 14th council meeting in 2023, council introduced an ordinance to add Chapter 17.15, and that would establish by right housing overlay districts. Be happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Community Development Director Turner is also here as well.
Are there any questions from the public on this item before I turn it to my colleagues? Ms. Harrington, any residents that would like to speak to this item on Zoom?
No, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Council, questions, comments?
Just a
Yes, Councilmember Bucci.
Maybe, we have a lot of folks in the audience tonight who weren't here for the first reading. Mr. Turner, maybe we could just get a quick 30-second synopsis for those who aren't in the know.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Stephen Turner, Community Development Director. The purpose of establishing the by right housing is to conform with state requirements wherein a city reuses housing element sites from prior housing elements to the 2023-2031 housing element, we have to allow housing on those sites by right if those sites are eligible to produce at least 16 units and that those residential projects include at least 20% of the units as affordable. So if projects come forward without those kind of qualifications, then they're not allowed to go through the by right process. So only those specific projects that provide affordable housing and that are large enough to accommodate at least 16 units go through that process. So the state requires us to essentially rezone those sites as by right housing sites according to the requirements. The city is approaching this by developing a overlay district that would be applied on top of the existing residential zoning designations to inform property owners in the community that those sites would be allowed by right under certain circumstances. And there's approximately about 25 or 26 sites that would be rezoned. That's a 30.
Thank you, Mr.
6
Chairman.
seconds.
That was perfect, thank
To
you.
follow up, were those property addresses listed in the report tonight?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And just as a reminder for me, we still have like our city's objective design standards for those sites. Those would still be something the developer has to meet.
Yes, objective design standards would still apply to those projects.
So thank you again for that, Mr. Turner. I need a motion and a second to adopt this item
So moved.
by Councilmember Bucci,
Second.
by Councilmember Jorgens. Let's see if we can do it correctly.
Show them how to do it. Let's go, Mr. Mayor.
Wow. See, so we clearly know.
Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newark adding chapter 17.15 establish the by right housing overlay district, rezoning certain property into the BRH overlay district and making related miscellaneous amendments to Title 17 zoning, New York Municipal Code.
Nothing happened to the properties?
No, you're still good.
Okay, good.
This is now City Council matters. I'm going to start to my left. Councilmember Jorgens.
Just want to wish all Newark residents a very happy new year and, best wishes for 2024.
Councilmember Collazo.
It's on. Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. And I don't like to make New Year's resolutions. Everybody makes a resolution and it lasts for a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, and it's over. But I think I'm going to try to be the best possible me this year by being kinder, respecting, and helping as many people as I can. And may your 2024 be everything that you all deserve. Best wishes to everybody.
It's not possible.
No?
It's not possible. I don't know how Councilmember Collazo could be any kinder than she already is. I'm interested to see what that deviation looks like. You're one of the kindest people that the city has ever had sit up here at the dais, so thank you for what you do. Councilmember Bucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to wish everybody a happy new year. And we had our second meeting of our Parks Master Plan update this last Tuesday. It was at the library, and certainly, it can be tough to make a meeting like that after a full day's work. So I was hoping for a little more of a turnout, but it's not too late because we have another meeting coming up at the end of February, date to be determined. And this third meeting is really going to go into the details of some of the projects people would like to see and the financing of it. And it should be very interactive and a good meeting to go to. So please be on the lookout for that. And then our park survey is still on the website for another week or two, I think, until it closes. I think Roya said that was maybe 2 weeks tops. So if you haven't taken it, it takes about 10 minutes, but if you can't make those meetings, the survey is very important. So please hop on the website, fill that out, take the 10 minutes to do it, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Vice Mayor Freitas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a few things, but the last memo of the December 19, we received the and updated on the project overpass for Central Overpass. And looks like it's going on to the final phase, but God, will take 3 years before spring of, 2027 will be completed. And looks like on the scheduling, the artillery coordination will be the consuming time of year to work with the special PG&E to change the artilleries from overhead to underground. But looks like we're going to, 3 years down the road, you'll see a beautiful bridge with beautiful aesthetics. And thank you, staff, that played it because we asked them that on the summer, and they came up with the final, I guess, map. Another thing, on 2 streets, we did overlay, which was Cherry Street and Newark Boulevard, and was the installation of, I guess we can, balusters for protecting the bikes. And I guess it was an independent contractor that did that. But each baluster has the 2 reflectors, and the reflectors, it's falling apart on blur area, so I guess they are glued, and it should be, because I've been removing by hand, or they are not completely glued also. And some of those, especially on the beginning of the track, they've been bending. I guess some good drivers been trying to hit those two. So I don't know if it's the follow-up question to how does that area between the balusters and the sidewalk will be cleaning? Do we have a special sweeper, because it will be narrower than the regular area? The sweeper is kind of wide, so who will be maintaining that and who will be cleaning that? And and I guess the balusters and the reflectors need maintenance. So they just finished that about 2 or 3 months ago. And who's be responsible for that? It's the independent contractor, is the city. Was the grant for all that, or can we go back and redo those because they need some attention? If it's now, it's the speeds of when we redo the resurface on the Newark streets. It's the speeds of 35. All those streets will be entitled to those bike protectors. I guess it's for the safe of the bikes. It's questions I don't know the answers, and I'd like to, because I got 2 or 3 calls at least from residents.
If I may, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, council member, for those concerns. With respect to the falling apart of the ballast, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I had not heard of that. I'll certainly follow up with our Public Works Department, and we'll examine the condition of whatever was installed. To the extent that they've been, those are not installed. They were installed relatively not that long ago. So to the extent that they're damaged, that's obviously going to be an issue for us to address with the installer. With respect to the cleaning of the street between, and essentially in the bike lane, the city does have plans to purchase a subcompact sweeper, so that would address the street cleaning and the maintenance of the street in that narrow area. And then the third issue you raised was the speed.
The bending of some balusters are so.
Right, and we will, of course, inspect that.
They've been damaged.
Okay.
On the other cities nearby, they installed that years ago, and I guess some crazy drivers trying to bend them those, but the way they installed those in Newark looks like it's a steel bar going deeper and has a opening on the underneath to make it a little bit stronger. But they try those special between Moores and Maury Avenue, they're trying to bend those. I don't know if it's the big rigs or whatever they're doing that, but it's few of those bended already. Especially at the beginning of the segment, they are bended.
I'd be happy to discuss the matter with city staff, and we will certainly investigate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
I'd like to take a moment and thank all the nonprofits throughout our community. Viola Blythe, Love Newark, all the different Salvation Army, all the nonprofits that provided food and toys and really made Christmas a real happy event for children. We have a lot of children in our community that don't have a lot of means, and anytime we can get a nonprofit to donate toys and clothing and food, it makes their Christmas worthwhile. All they think about when you're a 4 or 5 year old is, what am I going to get from Santa Claus? And if we can put a smile on their face as a community through all the volunteers that we have in our city, it just makes Christmas a much more enjoyable event. Big thanks to the fire department and the police department when we had the Santa at the fire station and Scrooge showed up. I appreciated the video by my colleague down here. It was just hilarious when the Scrooge is trying to take the bike away from the child at the fire station and the police roll up in a car to arrest Scrooge. I mean, it was just, you can't invent these things. That's what small communities are about. They think about really what's in the best interest of our community and how can we show the community that we really do care about them. And that was certainly an example of that. So real credit to those folks. On a more somber note, I do want to close tonight's meeting with the tragic passing of the Oakland police officer. Just a little bit about him. After graduating from the police academy in February of 2020, Officer Lee began building ties with Oakland residents at a time when trust in law enforcement was unraveling throughout the country. 2 years ago, he took a post as a community resource officer in West Oakland. Officer Lee, find my notes here. Officer Lee was born in Saigon, Vietnam. He emigrated to the United States at the age of 7, graduating from Oakland High School in 2006. By that time, he had already demonstrated a desire to serve and protect, interim Oakland Police Chief Darren Allison said, noting that Lee had followed the career path of his grandfather, a police officer in Vietnam. The chief and other characterized Lee as a figure of compassion, empathy, an unrelenting work ethic. He was tragically shot on December the 29th, doing a job that he loved to do, protecting and serving the residents of Oakland. We take for granted sometimes what these officers do for their communities day in and day out. And unfortunately, we need a tragedy like this to kind of remind us of the value that public safety brings to each and every one of our communities. I want to commend the city of Newark for flying its flags at half-staff. I want to commend the police department and the city manager for making sure that we were present at his service to show that when an officer in the Bay Area dies, it affects all of our communities. So I will be closing tonight's council meeting in memory of Officer Lee, and just take the moment to, when you see an officer, firefighter, police officer, nurse, doctor, anyone that serves the public, just say thanks. Just want to say thanks. Thanks for what you do. We appreciate you. It goes a long way in giving them the impetus to continue doing what they do every day, because it's not an easy task. So with that being said, I'll close the meeting in his memory.